Are we live now? What?
Pissing JD off.
What's up to all our sidekicks and henchfolk out there in the Geek Nation? You're currently tuning into the creator-owned, fully funded CultPop podcast, episode 47, a show where we talk about movies, TV, comics, independent creators, getting it done, and all other things that scratch your nerdy itch. We're coming to you live, from Young Junk, a bomb-ass podcasting production space here in Philadelphia, PA. I'm your temporary host, Noel Bartocci, supporter of Johnny Destructo's Hero Complex, located at 4327 Main Street, Philadelphia, PA. It happens to be a super rad comic shop, which caters to nerdy and nerd-adjacent individuals of all shapes, sizes, ethnicities, genders, you name it. With me tonight are Brian Lieb.
Hi.
Do you want to say anything else, or
Hello.
efficient?
I'll say more
I appreciate
later.
it. No, I appreciate
I'll say other stuff. Don't worry.
To my left is,
Hey, what's up? Holla at your boy. This is Len the Bat Triple.
and we have a special guest tonight, Carmen Costa, writer,
What's up, everybody?
creator of Proctor,
Yes.
an exciting new series live now on Kickstarter. We'll talk about it later.
Proctor.
But also, I feel like
that was good.
That was
I feel like that should be
That's
capped.
like exactly the noise a
Yeah.
Proctor makes.
Can we isolate that and just like use it everywhere?
Huh.
Yeah,
You're like Frank Welker.
I was just speaking off screen to our trusty producer, Dylan the Great. Remember, if anything goes wrong, and I'm talking about anything, if there's weather, production, tech, it's Dylan's fault.
Dylan flapped his wings, I think, a little while ago, and they're
And-
expecting a tornado or a hurricane somewhere.
Like in Japan somewhere, yeah.
Yeah. Dylan, what?
It's the Dylan effect.
Why?
The butter Dylan effect.
Yes.
You could do so many different things with those wings.
Yeah.
This is what you do.
I choose chaos every time.
worst.
You're intentional.
the worst.
You're in control of whether or not it starts a tornado, and that's what you want.
So we
I love Butter Dylan. That was funny.
butter Dylan.
Dylan.
I thought that landed like a
My-
wet noodle, but I appreciate
I
you
heard
giving it a
I was
chuckle.
there.
My
Yeah.
girlfriend sometimes calls me Butter McGonagall just simply because I love butter.
Interesting. Where's the McGonagall part come
Okay,
from?
wait, hang on.
That's my last name.
That's
I would
interesting.
like
I didn't know that.
We have a guest. We have a packed show, but I want to unpack that a little bit.
I
Yeah.
need details.
You love butter. Okay. There's two different ways that could be sussed out. Like,
Yeah.
I like to apply it many places, or
Uh-huh.
I sneak a spoonful of butter
Before I go to bed.
raw before I go to bed.
No, all right. So
Which,
a little column A, a little column B.
Oh my God! I worry about your
so
future.
no. Here's the thing. No, it's okay. You don't gotta worry. I love butter. I love applying it to things. But if I'm in the middle of cooking with butter and a little bit of butter's on my finger, I'll lick it off.
That's not column B.
Yeah, do you go out of your
That's
way?
a little bit of
That's not
column B.
Column B is you sneak a bite of butter.
Yeah.
When you
Or
just
do it
leave the
brazenly.
fridge, right?
That
I
would also
would-
count.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't for no reason sneak a bite of butter. I guess, but
I mean,
I'm not saying that I haven't eaten just straight
You're-
up butter by itself.
you're young and bulletproof. It's fine.
Exactly. I'll never.
Have
die.
you
'Cause of all the
melted
butter.
butter and taken a straw to it?
No.
Would you?
Because you got to drink it fast. It'll congeal.
You would. Okay.
All right,
It
this is-
depends. Is there also liquefied like lobster that I'm drinking from a straw as well?
Yes, the lobster has been liquefied, but it's in a different cup.
All right. Yeah. Two straws.
Absolutely disgusting.
yeah. So one, two.
Yeah.
So it's like a chaser.
You have to
like
combine
a
them in
shot
your
of
mouth,
butter and
yes.
a chaser of.
Oh, interesting
Lobster?
order, but yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
you chase it with
you
the
wanna
lobster.
Coat the mouth. All right. So
Sure.
the reason why we're so fucking off the rails already, JD's not here, who usually keeps us in check, but we'll do our very best because, like I
Does
mentioned
he?
before, not really. He's so easily distractible.
This feels pretty
On
as
brand.
much on the
And
rails as
I hope
we
he's.
actually are.
I
There's
hope
lots of
he's.
rails.
Yeah.
I actually hope he's not watching because he's on vacation and he should not be wasting his time with us right now.
Yeah. Close your eyes, JD.
Yeah,
Hate
listen
you.
only.
So, well, like I had mentioned, we have a packed show and a guest, and we're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. But before I get into that, I just want to remind everybody that's watching live or even afterwards, because, you know, it's the internet, it's forever. Please feel free to comment, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so you know when we go live next time and post new content. Also, if you don't necessarily want to do a back and forth in Messenger, just email us at cultpopgo@gmail.com. Anything and everything, let us know, and we'll talk about it later. So well, let's jump into that part of the show where we talk about the things that we may or may not have done, experienced, loved, hated over the course of the last week.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with our guest, Carmen. What you been up to this week?
Huh?
Oh, that was nice.
You didn't know that was gonna
I
happen?
did not know that.
Yeah.
Was good. Recently wrapped up Arcane on Netflix.
Oh,
What is that? I have
yes.
not seen
Yeah, what's this?
Brought to us by the creators of League of Legends.
Yeah.
I had absolutely no idea that I knew of the game, but I had no idea the show existed. I teach a class called Pop Culture and Media Studies at the high school I work at, and my students put me onto it. And their claim was it's the best show on Netflix, and I was like, I at least need to entertain that. It's pretty close. Visually, I would put it up there with the new Turtles movie. I would put it up there with the Spider-Verse films.
Oh.
So I guess apparently it took 6 years to make, and it is very apparent that it took 6 years to make it.
Yeah.
Is it 1 season, 2 seasons?
I think it's 2 seasons, isn't it?
No, right now it's 1 season,
Oh, that's
9
right.
episodes.
That's right.
Are you
And
thinking about
what's,
the one that's on Prime?
No. I'm thinking about. I know what he's talking about. I know exactly
What's the
what
one
he's
that's on Prime
talking about. The
now?
one that's on Prime is
That I
the one
tried
that's
and I
based
just
on
couldn't.
like a
Vox Machina?
yeah, Vox Machina.
Okay.
Yeah, what
I
is
get them mixed
Arcane
up.
all about? Like, what's the?
So it takes place in the League of Legends universe. So
Okay.
I guess the characters that are in the protagonists and antagonists in the show are featured in the game. I think like the protagonist is one of the playable characters, but it takes place in this fictional world that is very much so like steampunk
Yeah.
magic
Oh,
adjacent type thing. So if you're
cool.
into, I guess, high fantasy steampunk, it's definitely
I'm into
it's
those
definitely
things.
there for you.
Yeah,
It sounds like he's describing your level of kink.
it's up my
Episodes
oh, yeah.
1 and 2 were slow, and
Because there's a lot of building up of the universe.
it's a ton of world building.
Yeah,
Very much so in the same way I was with like Game of Thrones, where you're like, you're 2 episodes in, you're like, I get it, but you know what's going on.
And if I remember, because I watched it actually a little bit ago. It's like it's almost like getting the gang together the first couple of episodes.
Yeah.
You know, but the animation, the computer animation of it is top level. You can see where they put the work in. The world building is intense, intentional. The voice acting is good. The action is pretty cool. It actually is a pretty cool series.
Nice.
Arcane.
And it gets dark too, which
It
I
gets real
did
dark.
not expect it to get as dark as it did.
I love it. I love it when content can do that. Content. I sound like a fucking asshole. Everything is content. I love it when a movie or a TV series or a book series does that, where it kind of lulls you into safety or security, and then just gets like. You were talking about it last week. Reservation Dogs.
Yes.
I think is a really good example where it starts as almost like a little bit of a lighter.
Yeah.
There's seriousness,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
lighter. But then it literally becomes a drama by the
Yeah.
time you're invested. Yeah.
Yeah, much deeper.
Nice. What else have you been up to?
I just read Hickman's Gods.
Oh.
Jonathan Hickman with art by Valerio Schiti.
It's unbelievably good.
I thought so too.
Nice.
And it
That
was
sounds
for the Marvel universe, a breath of fresh air, where like all of the I guess not all, but a lot of your major players from the Marvel world are in your periphery, but they're not the stars of the show by any means, and you're just kind of following these new folks around this very familiar world, which I liked.
There's we talked about it last week on not you and I, but I'm referring to you because you're right next to me. We talked about it on Fresh Floppies last week. Fresh Floppies, if anybody hasn't listened to it, it's our weekly Wednesday morning podcast where we talk about new comics that come out that day. It's often posted late, so if you're on the way to the shop on Thursdays, we're your guys. But yeah, it was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. That first issue was basically a short graphic novel.
And it's kind of a one shot.
It's
Like,
a full story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was a lot of humming and hawing on comic Twitter about the price tag. It is a $9.99 comic book.
The first issue.
The first issue.
How many pages?
90.
Yeah, it's big.
Oh,
Pretty good deal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a 22-page issue of Spider-Man is
It's
$4.99,
$5.
$5
Yeah.
bucks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. And also, it is not just a first issue. It's literally a whole 3-act, one and done that kind of introduces where we're going to go next. But you literally can read it and just like not continue if you don't want to. It's really good. It's
Let
really,
me,
really
let
good.
me just ask, because I haven't read this, but Hickman is very fond of putting in a lot of process stuff in his books.
You get none of it in this.
No.
Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah,
I know it's a
it was
story.
nice. I was waiting
There's
for
no
it.
maps. There's no
that's
timelines.
cool.
There's no. I mean, there's
I mean, those are fun.
there's
but-
intricacy, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll show up eventually because he does establish. The concept of the book is that there are the powers that be, and there is the natural order of things. The powers that be, the avatar for the powers that be, is this gentleman named Wynn. He's seemingly immortal, kind of magical.
And this is
very
set in the Marvel Universe.
Marvel Universe current day. Very tired. And the powers that the order of things
Yeah.
is a group of 100 like agents. The deal that was made was that the avatar for the natural order for the powers that be has to have a representative or an apprentice from the natural order of things, and they fix things together.
All right.
So it's like it's a buddy comedy, but it's a unwitting a partnership or an unwilling partnership. It's very good. It's very, very good.
Sounds
and then
cool.
it's incredibly romantic too.
Yeah, it gives you, like I said, a breath of fresh air for sure. Especially with the Hickman book, where you don't really get that.
A lot of times it's very antiseptic or clinical and to the point.
Yeah, like I read, I tried Black Monday Murders. Volume 1, I was like, okay, cool. Volume 2, I was like, I'm just an idiot. Like I'm a moron. Like there's no way I can, and I'm okay with that. And we're just gonna put this down, and I'm gonna never look at this ever again.
It reminded me of. Did you stick with Decorum?
No, but I liked it a lot. And I,
It,
you know.
it reminded me of the tone of that, where it's
Ooh,
like
okay.
big ideas, but we're really just gonna focus on this one girl who's good at her job.
That's cool.
Like it rides the rails between huge but also like really small and personal. I liked it. I was super shocked about it. I hope it gets really popular and speculators freak out because they bitched about the price tag. That's what I hope.
That's what speculators do.
Worth everyone's time.
Absolutely worth everyone's time. What have you been up to this week, Len?
Well, what I've been up to, no, I'm glad you asked. I just finished a podcast that, admittedly, it was put out by a good friend of mine, Ronald Young. It's a short podcast series that you can find as part of the Radiotopia family, but it's available everywhere, and it's called Wait for It. And Wait is WEIGHT. And I'm going to read this straight from Apple Podcasts. Wait for It unpacks the nuanced thoughts of fat folks and of all folks who think about their weight all the time. Through narrative storytelling, Ronald hopes to have the conversations that we tend to avoid when it comes to our bodies. It's about I think it's like about maybe 6 or 7 episodes. And Ronald, who is a larger guy, really just wanted to unpack what it meant to be fat in America by taking a personal examination of his own life and how he deals with his weight, how he processes people looking at him and considering him fat, how people are maneuver around him, how some people may think that he is a danger to them or might be scared of him because of his size, or some people might be intimidated because of his size, or there are some people who are make fun of him because of his size. And it's really, really cool. He talks about how his doctor at one time was always kind of being like really passive aggressive with him about losing weight. He talks about at one time when he was a little bit smaller and was dating a larger size woman and how he reacted with her. And then he has a very cool episode where he actually has a conversation with her and kind of like, they reflect on how they were back at that time, which gets deeply personal.
Yeah.
But it's real. And I think they come out on the other side the better for it. And he has other really cool conversations. He has a dope conversation with this guy, Deshaun Harrison, who's a theoretic writer that I've actually interviewed before. and they talk about fat phobia, and also how it is experienced with a more fluid man, which is what Deshaun is. It's a great podcast series. I recommended it to a couple of my friends who are larger sizes, and they were like, "So what you trying to say, Len?" It's like, no, I just think it's a cool podcast.
Well, I just subbed. I've dealt with weight issues my entire life, and that sounds fantastic.
It's absolutely fantastic, and it was as transformative as it was for me to listen to it, because this was a guy that I knew, Ronald. He's a friend of mine, but to hear him being this deeply personal, like I have even a more deeper appreciation for him and love for him. But it was even more transformative for me to see the guys that I introduced to it, and like how they went to it, like, well, what are you trying to say, Len? And then they're like, shh, I'm listening. And they were like taking it all in, and like, because he was speaking to things that unspoken things that they said, like I never even thought about it. My boy Calvin, who I'm sorry, I said your name, Calvin. I'm sorry, but
he's a Bears fan. He's okay.
Bear down. Ronald goes, part of his one of the episodes, he talks about how he has to, be maneuvering as a larger man, and people don't notice it, but he has to be kind of strategic about how he walks and where he sits, and the things that he sits on or leans against. And I'm listening to that. Me and Calvin were listening to it at the same time, and I was like, Calvin, you don't be thinking about that. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, shit, I never would have thought that. Me and Calvin hang out all the time, and I would have never like seen that. But he's like, I think about it all the time, man. And like, this is really cool. So it's a really cool podcast. Wait for it. Check it out.
I will say, like, that is a real thing. Like when we first started podcasting, everybody was like, we're going to be in recliners. And the first thing I thought was, it's impossible to not look like a fat fuck sitting in a recliner like this, no matter how well you sit, and being short. And it was just always top of mind of like how you present yourself when you struggle with weight. Yeah, that's cool. That's a great conversation.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, we really don't get enough of the male conversation when it comes to like how much space we take up and how we like make each other feel. And I think that's something that's as when I'm in a classroom with kids, like I always try and take stock of that, and you always sort of realize like to exist in your own body, we're now in a world where I think for women it's an easier conversation to have, whereas I think men even still shy away from it for one reason or another, or maybe it turns into a joke so that we don't have to take it as seriously as maybe we should. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, totally. I don't necessarily think that the culture has caught up to open spaces for guys.
No,
not at all.
Not at all.
No.
And it usually takes assholes our age that just don't care enough about preconceived notions to just go ahead and talk about it. Like, yeah, whatever. I have this problem.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
20-year-old me would very much hide it and not be exactly sure and not know exactly who I can converse with it. So it would end up being a joke or a drunken conversation about real feelings or, like shit like that. Yeah. No, that sounds like a great show. On a lighter note, Brian.
Hey.
Have you been up to anything this week?
I've been up to a thing. I've been up to something.
Would you like to talk about a thing that you've been up to? Perhaps it was good.
It was good. It was Good Omens 2.
What?
Season 2. So just a little background. There was Good Omens, Season 1, which is the entirety of the book, Good Omens. And
Neil Gaiman book, right?
Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And they wrote that a long time ago and had ideas for a second story. But then I guess Sandman took off and Discworld took off, and they both just, their careers bloomed, and they never got back to it, right? But they remained really good friends.
Burdened with success.
Yes, very much so. They spoke of it often. So they never got back to it, but remained really good friends. Terry Pratchett passed away a little while ago, but they did this season 1 with several homages to Terry Pratchett, and then it was very popular, so they're doing a season 2. This is not the book idea that they had together. that if there's another season of the show, will be season 3, and that will be it. This is very much like an interstitial. The general idea of Good Omens, especially in season 2, is that there's this angel and a demon, and they were around, since the beginning of Earth and before, and became very, very close over that time. They started doing little things for each other, and it took a while, but now they're like the closest of companions. David Tennant plays Crowley, the demon. Excellent. It's kind of like his version of the Doctor. I heard it described with whiskey and cigars. And Michael Sheen is Aziraphale. The two of them have become really good friends since this show started, and they're both phenomenal. John Hamm is in it.
Love John Hamm.
Yeah, he's great, and he's
Gabriel, right?
He's Gabriel, who was not a character in the book, but was in season 1 and is a bigger part of season 2. Which season 2 is this a much smaller story. Season 1 is about the birth of the Antichrist and trying to
End of the world, Horseman of the Apocalypse.
Yeah, he gets born into. He's supposed to be placed with a high-level American diplomat played by Nick Offerman.
That's
in
right.
The show.
That's right.
And he is accidentally.
Did you watch Good Omens?
I did not.
It was
no.
very
Oh,
funny.
it's so good. I didn't realize you watched it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
watched the first one. We just haven't watched the second one
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
Yeah, it was very funny.
The Antichrist accidentally gets placed in a suburban British house and grows up as this like suburban kid without all these influences that they want him to have. That ends, and then you've got this, like I said, much smaller story between Aziraphale and Crowley, and about their relationship deepening. And John Hamm's Gabriel shows up with absolutely no memory, and he's completely nude. And they're like, "What do we do with this guy who is not their favorite guy?"
No, he's a foil in the first season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's so much fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Neil Gaiman said if they don't get a 3rd season, he will write a book that is the wrap up of it, which is excellent. And it's something very interesting for a show to do, where season 1 is really big and season 3 presumably will be big. Who knows? But to do this like interstitial story in between the two.
How many
of them,
episodes is it?
6, I believe. The
Perfect.
same as the first one, I think.
Perfect size.
Yeah, it's great. I think they're longer episodes than a
Yeah.
normal thing, but I mean, they flew by for me. Yeah.
It's on the list.
Excellent.
Good Omens available on Amazon Prime, right?
Yes.
Prime
Yeah.
Video.
Sorry.
And I'll tell you
Prime
what, the
Video.
opening credits are cool, and they're ones that I've watched like not every time, but I've let them go by a couple of times.
I'll go quick. No, what you been up to this week, huh? Oh, I'll go.
No, what have you been up to this week, huh?
I want to formally address something that's been weighing on me for 4, 5, 6 months now,
Okay.
since the beginning of the summer. I finally saw Haunted Mansion.
Oh, how was that?
It's available now on Disney Plus. Haunted Mansion, rated PG-13, directed by Justin Simeon of Dear White People, starring Lakeith Stanfield, Tiffany Haddish, Rosario Dawson, Owen Wilson,
Danny DeVito.
Oh, yeah.
Just literally a murderer's row of character actors. Huge budget, special effects. Thought it was going to do well at the box office. I bet you it was, and I lost. It did terribly.
What were the stakes of that, Pat?
$20, I think. So I'll hook you up eventually.
Wait, but it's like over a year, right? Something happens over the course of a year, I think.
No, I think I said the domestic box office would be over 100 million.
Oh.
What was the budget on it? Do we know?
I think it's like 125, 130. It'll make its money back, but it'll be like an even draw. It's not going to be at the box office. But finally watched it on Disney Plus. My wife is not a fan of things that are scary, but constantly wants to watch Halloween themed things. So there's just a very small sliver
That
of
threads the
what's
needle.
poss-
That
Yeah.
threads the needle. That's
So
nice.
PG-13 Haunted Mansion, Beetlejuice, that kind of shit.
Sure.
Just threads the needle.
Charlie Brown Halloween.
I get
That-
that.
that
I'm kind of
actually
in the
is
same
every year.
stripe.
Scooby Doo and the Booze Brothers. If you're looking for one,
The Booze Brothers?
Scooby Doo and the Booze. That is, it's a hitter.
Top
It's
notch?
good. Worth your
All
time.
Interesting.
We watched Haunted Mansion. It wasn't bad.
Nice.
It should have if they created it in a lab, it should have had all the things that made it incredibly successful. One of them being it should not have come out in fucking July.
Yeah, that's a weird choice.
It should have came out
Yeah.
like next week.
Yeah.
But whatever. It was good. It was a really impressive looking movie. Everybody was good in it. The first half hour to 40 minutes, a little sleepy. But then the whole second half, the third act was great. Like it was a solid, passive, not so scary Halloween movie. But yeah, I mean, I wish it took the world by storm.
I could have told you it wasn't.
You did?
Yeah, you did tell me that.
It's not a good movie. It's not funny. It's not scary. I don't think it's good looking. I think it's really a
did
dismal.
you watch it?
Yes, I saw it.
It
What?
was a very pretty movie. The whole third act was very pretty.
I had a free screening.
Also, there was a couple of very effective emotional beats. Wait a second. Hold on. Why was Rosario Dawson and her son dressed like they were in the 50s?
I have no idea.
Do you think that's a plot thread that they just like cut?
Probably has something to do with that and the weird wig that they made her wear.
Right. Spoilers? Not really spoilers. I don't know. Is you guys gonna watch this movie? Is everyone that's listening right now gonna watch this movie?
No.
They make the aesthetic choice for Rosario Dawson and her 9-year-old son to just wear like 50s, 60s style garb.
June and Beaver Cleaver.
Are they
talk
ghosts
like that
in
at all?
this?
No.
So the entire movie, I'm thinking like, okay, it's going to be revealed that they've been in that house, they've stuck in that house for 200 years, or
Or like a Sixth
they're
Sense
ghosts.
sort of
Right,
reveal.
right.
Sure.
Nope.
Nope.
They just wear those clothes.
That's just how
Does
they
it take
dress.
place during?
Nope.
Nope. I mean, they do go out of their way. No one uses a cell phone. No one uses a computer. No one uses Google. Like, it's very timeless in that way.
Yeah, a little
and
bit,
the
yeah.
oldest car is like maybe early 90s.
Yeah, but
It's not 50s.
It's not
like, yeah.
what they look like. No.
Okay.
It was a really weird choice. The kid is like 9 and he's dressed up in a bow tie, full three-piece
Well, I think that was
tweed suit.
I think that was a choice for the character, his look. It was more her look
but it's
that
both
was just disturbing
It's so weird.
to me. It's
She's adorable though. She's always adorable in
who?
everything.
Rosario
Rosario
Dawson.
Dawson.
Look, I love
great.
Rosario Dawson. I love Lakeith Stanfield.
Mm-hmm.
But they both were cashing Disney checks and they were
So I
sleeping through this. They were sleeping.
first couple of episodes of Ahsoka, yeah. This she showed up.
If you say so.
I think so.
Do you guys think it's possible that they released it in July so that it was available for streaming by Halloween? Like, is that?
Yes and no, but I think it was also moved up. Like something got pushed back, and
Yeah.
then they. Actually, it was Marvel's.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Marvel's
That's
swap.
right.
Oh,
It
they
was
swapped
supposed
them?
to come out like
Oh,
around now, but Mars was supposed to come out in July, and they
I
swapped
see.
it.
But
Yeah.
they also don't do like a ton of PG-13 films closer to the winter, right? Isn't there like I forget what that count? I thought there was like mostly like
I
fourth
believe that. I'm
quarter
not
is like
sure.
rated R.
Well, it's rated R
territory.
or Oscar bait.
Okay,
usually
yeah.
around this time.
You're
Yeah.
saying this is not going to win an Oscar?
No.
Probably not.
All right.
Not even like the good ones, like costume design. Or
No, I see a couple of Razzies
maybe
in its future.
maybe some
Okay.
sound editing. I don't know.
No, it sounded
Uh,
horrible.
So that was our week.
It's a bad movie,
It's you know what? Everyone has an opinion.
and mine is right.
And yours is yours. So anyway, we brought Carmen here today to talk
Hi, guys.
very specifically about something very cool that he's been working on or has worked on. It's worked on, done.
It's done. It's done.
So, Proctor is an original. Thank you.
Dude, I
Let me
need
do-
that.
let me
We
do it
gotta-
one more time. Like,
Let's make that. I need to license it.
Proctor, an original comic book, creator-owned comic book by Carmen Costa and Riccardo Cecchi.
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 There you go.
I'll mess it up one more time. Give us the rundown, like pitch the book to us, talk about your process and where people can find it.
Sure. So the easiest way to find it, actually, I'll pitch it first. Let's pitch it first.
Tell me the story.
So imagine if Buffy the Vampire Slayer had a bit of a drinking problem and an unhealthy relationship with her mom. That's pretty much how we get those vibes from the very beginning. She's 27 years old, trying to figure out her life, and it's kind of a love letter to any messy 20-something like I was. It's like definitely like a love letter to messy millennials. You know what I mean? I feel like we kind of got the raw deal, and we exited college and we were maybe promised a bit of a roadmap that we didn't get.
Right.
And so that's kind of that's the world that we exist in. So the easiest way to get it is you can just search Proctor on Kickstarter. You can follow me on Instagram at carmen.costa.writes, and then it's in the LinkedIn bio. You can just
put it all
there.
We'll put it all in there.
Yep. It was originally a book that I started about 3 years ago.
You told me this, and I like this story. How it became a comic. Talk to me.
Yeah. So I've been like always writing stuff, and I was actually working on another comic at the time with a team, and you kind of get bored, when things start to slow down. So I just decided to pivot a little bit and spend like a couple mornings working on this idea of like the vampire slayer or the hero that is always a mess. Like, if this isn't an origin story, we're not getting a story about someone discovering powers. We're just accepting the fact that sometimes you don't get it right, and and you're just trying to make it work as best as you can. Yeah. So that took me about 3 years to write, and maybe 6 different drafts, beta readers, people giving me feedback. And then I was pitching it to agents, and, I know that corny rule of like, you need like 100 rejection letters. If you don't get 100 rejection letters, it's not enough. And I think I got to like 50, and I was like, it's enough. I need to reevaluate this. So I coincidentally had gotten a job at a comic book store in Glassboro, New Jersey, the comic book store on Rowan campus. Nice. And my buddy who works there was talking to me about the book because he had read it. And I guess just from being inundated with comics, right? Like, I'm just looking around, and I'm reading Something Is Killing the Children, and there are some aspects of that I thought were cool.
How long it was like a novel?
Yeah, 300 pages.
300 pages?
300 pages.
How long was it? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'm looking at all these other things, and I'm looking at the art of Jimenez, and I love that artwork. And then I'm looking at the art of Once and Future, and I'm just putting all these things together. I'm like, man, I really wanna maybe try this. So it started as a 300-page book, and then it was reduced to 12 issues, and then I reduced it to 8, and then I finally after having conversations with Riccardo, we landed at 6, and I think I managed to pull. Not that there are unnecessary chapters, but in my mind, these chapters started to become like really cool one-shots, and I don't need the flashback chapter necessarily, and now I can really, if I want to, I can make it a short story.
Exactly.
Exactly. And I started to play around with the idea of the right way to tell a story, the economics of storytelling in the comic book industry, and started to just accept the fact that I had to live in those in those shoes. And so the book was born. It took us maybe 4 months to get issue 1 done. Riccardo starts issue 2 in 2 weeks.
How'd you connect with
I was going to
Riccardo?
ask, how'd you find Riccardo?
So working at the comic book store, it's December, and my buddy Tim goes, hey, Top Cal is doing a talent search. If you want, like, you have to just write a script. So I say, okay, well, that's pretty cool. When's the deadline? He goes, next week. And I say, all right, well, what's the requirements? He goes, oh, you have to write an issue of Cyberforce.
Oh.
Yeah, dude. So I'm like, all right, man, I'm not doing it. Like, there's just, this is not happening. So I just go on my merry way, and then all of a sudden Sunday morning comes, and the deadline's Wednesday, and I wake up, and I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm just gonna fucking try it, right? So I spend the entire day, I crank out an issue, and there were like these weird rules where it had to take place in the universe, but couldn't really be canon-y. I forget all the requirements. So
Cyberforce is a canon that is protected?
I guess,
Yes.
yeah. So
Fucking okay.
So I submit it, and then once the submission deadline came, the the people the submission was on, or the group that I was in was on Facebook. So it was a giant Facebook group of like 5,000 people. And one of the administrators was like, any artists who want to post their work, for sure, just like start posting your work. The deadline's over. If you want to share stuff, share stuff. So Riccardo shares his pages, and I basically, underneath his page, commented like, if you don't win this is a scam. Like there's no way in any world you don't win. Like it's crazy. And he said, thank you so much. And then I reached out to him and I was like, you know what? Let me just pitch it. Like, let me just pitch him. So I just said, hey man, listen, and at the time I just had the book. I didn't have any of issue 1 written yet. So I said, I have this idea for a comic. It was a book. Let me write you the first 8 pages or first 10 pages, because if you're submitting your package to an indie publisher in the comic book world, they typically want 5 to 8 pages or whatever that is, right? So I was like, let me pitch you the pages. And if you like it, great. But if you think that it stinks, I get it. And that's fine. Like I respect that. So I sent it to him. He dug it. And then it was we started, I think, maybe January, right after New Year, January 2 or January 3. And then it was Riccardo.
Where is he located?
Italy.
Okay.
So Riccardo's in Italy. So I started working with Riccardo and just agreeing on, panel layout, pencils, inks. And then he put me on to the colorist that I'm using, Marcos Martins, who lives in Brazil.
Yeah, and Marcos does great work.
Yeah, he's good. And then he put me on they both put me on to a guy by the name of Reed Hinckley Barnes, who is a letterer out of San Francisco, I believe. So yeah, it's been wild just pitching these ideas global. So it's been fun. I recently discovered that pre-production, discovering pre-production is a thing was jarring, but I had, I added, hired somebody else to do that. So that's been kind of cool and feeling that out. So that's been the process. It's been wild.
You're just going to figure it out as you go. I like it. Well,
yeah, I am.
Research and education, and then just like, I'll do this, and then I guess I'll do this. I think that's fun.
I've always been, to a fault, because it's gotten me in trouble. I've always been a how hard can it be guy. I was in punk bands in high school. I graduated from college and did like a singer-songwriter thing that got some pretty good indie success, and it was always just, I'm just gonna show up. Like I'm just gonna show up with my guitar. I'm just gonna show up, and if people don't like it, then I know, and that's great. If people tell me to go home, that's fine too, but it can't be that hard to just show up. And that's kind of like
that's half of it there.
You just have to show up, man.
Exactly,
and then be consistent, right? Like show up, be consistent, and then things will kind of start falling into place. So
how much of it was a twist of your thinking to go from writing a novel to writing a comic book? That is a different type of style of writing.
It was okay. So in one instance, it was a breath of fresh air. In another instance, it was infuriating. And I didn't realize that until the talent search, because for the talent search, they were kind of basically like, if you don't know how to write a comic book, here are links to all of these different scripts from all these different comic book artists. Like, you can figure it out. And all of them were vastly different.
Exactly.
And what I realized was that there aren't any hard and fast rules to it. And again, you just kind of have to show up. And I kind of took a look at, I think I looked at a Bendis script. I looked at an Alan Moore script.
Ooh.
I looked at, which was...
That's a pendulum swing.
Yeah.
It's like Bendis goes Final Draft Pro, like almost screenwriting, playwright style.
Yeah.
And
But Alan Moore.
Alan Moore
I'm
is...
going to describe the blades of grass in the side panel.
And his own little drawings.
And tell you the history of each blade.
And at least the script that I saw, so maybe, allegedly this was his script. So I don't want to say, I don't want...
It's probably true.
Right. I don't want to be on, but I don't want to offend anybody. But it was like no indents, all caps, like just a wall of capital
text.
letters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, but again, it was kind of a breath of fresh air where I was like, okay, I can kind of make my own way. And then
between.
Yeah, and I found a video of, I believe it was Scott Snyder explaining his writing process.
That's his Patreon.
Yep.
His Patreon or his Substack is basically Comic Books 101, and he does videos of how to break story, how to like approach a series, how to do this and that. I remember getting all the emails asking if I wanted to join in.
It was cool because he was like, this is how I think, if I'm remembering it correctly, it's kind of like, this is how I write for Greg Capullo, but this is how I write for Jim Lee.
Yeah.
And you realize that, oh, wait a minute, like as the writer, I'm actually working for my artist.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually not like the dialogue's me. Like the dialogue, I feel like it comes through in Proctor, and I'm really happy with it. I feel like it's nice and punchy. But for the most part, everything else, I'm working for my artist, and I just have to communicate with him. It's not really about the reader, where I think sometimes if you started just writing, if you're writing a narrative, you're thinking I have to entertain my reader every which way by way of what, imagery and this and that. And if your artist doesn't really care about imagery and they want to take the reins a little bit and they want to make certain decisions, as long as you're comfortable relinquishing that to them, it's great. So I think Riccardo and I have developed a pretty awesome relationship where, he'll make recommendations like, hey, this shows up on, the script says that this happens on panel 5 of page 3, but how about we move it to panel 1 of page 4? Because if I move this panel, it gives me the freedom to do this other stuff. And he also respects the dialogue stuff because I don't really have to ask him, and he does an amazing job of reading the script and being like, okay, if I'm going to put this character here, there needs to be space for the dialogue, which is in previous experiences with other artists, they haven't done that. So that's like the professionalism that I think is pretty rad. Yeah.
What did your scripts end up looking like for Riccardo? Like where did you balance the what the script ended up looking like more?
Definitely more Bendis. Definitely more. And I am not saying I am ready for this in any way, shape, or form, but I can definitely see this idea of like, oh, I can definitely I would like to write a screenplay. And then you start to see like, oh man, what would it be like to direct a film? Where you're kind of start to living in that space a little bit more, where 2 years ago, having never written a script.
Carm, how hard can it be?
How hard can it, dude, story of my life, bro. Show up and
I love him or hate him, Bendis is like the only, other than like Scott Snyder now is doing like 101 stuff on his Substack, but Bendis actually has a textbook, Words with Pictures. Yeah, like he made a textbook like maybe like 7-8 years ago, and then there's been another edition of it, and he teaches at Portland University. Him and Eric Walker.
Is it? Yeah.
But yeah, if you're ever interested in process and just like it's half textbook about comic book scripting and just like working with artists, and then the other half of the book is like an oral story history of some of the biggest projects he's worked on.
Oh, very cool.
Where it's like printed interviews between him and Alex Maleev and him and Olivier Coipel, like
different artists.
Yeah.
So like it's half entertaining, but it's also half like educational about like there's a lot of things that people don't really know about or talk about in regards to like building comic books. And I thought it's like that's a really cool resource. Anybody out there, your local bookstore.
The craziest part about this has been just coming to terms with this is the comic book business. And just hard looks in the mirror and just being like, these are the decisions that you have to make. These are the ways that we need to fund. I'm gonna print this many issues for this reason because I have a roadmap for how I want my Kickstarter to go and how I want it to fund. I'm paying more attention to paper quality. Like all of that stuff kind of starts to take control too. Even the idea of cover A, cover B, cover C, the variant world. I didn't know that if I wanted to do a variant through Print Ninja, just deciding to have a second variant was going to cost me $250. But when you have to pay the artist $250 and then the colorist to color it and then Print Ninja to just turn the switch. Now you're $500, $600, $700 into a cover B that had better sell, right?
Right.
That's kind of the world that I'm in now.
Let's talk about where is it now with Kickstarter?
So we are at $5,000. Our funding goal was $4,500.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice.
I'm very excited.
Funded in less than 2 days?
Yeah, funded in less than 48 hours. There's a great comic book community, and then also I just have awesome people in my life who really believe in the project and want to see the project win. It's also felt good that, I've been sending some people advanced copies just to get a read on it, and even the poster, when I explain, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer drinking problem, hard unhealthy relationship with her mother, so many people have been like, oh dude, same. Like immediately they just it hits, and she's kind of built with the DNA of my wife, but a lot of really awesome women that I'm friends with and have been friends with at different stages of my life, and it kind of I think speaks to them, but also it's me. Like, it really is me. There's a note on the first page of the book, and it really, she helped me get through a lot. I'm 5 years sober, and I think one of the things that helped me navigate that was, writing about this character, right? Like, I think even if you're not a woman, and even if you have a healthy relationship with your mom, and I think even if you don't have a drinking problem or whatever,
or fight demons,
yeah. I think you will, hopefully, if I do it right, and I genuinely think that I did this time, I think you'll find pieces of yourself, if not in Sam, then in the other characters that will eventually show up, because these other characters are love letters to friends, acquaintances, just people in my life that kind of were like lightning rods, and they might not even know it, where I just, a friend in high school who I don't talk to anymore, who was just this like force of nature that I just was like, thank goodness this person's in my life, I think those people show up. So if those people are in your life, I think you'll find them in the book too.
I think it's interesting because one of the things that I noticed in a lot of the work that I've created, because I've been an artist and a writer and stuff like that, is that a lot of the work that I've done, the protagonists are women.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Some of them are amalgamations of people in my lives. Some of them, like, I wrote a children's book and it's basically based on my daughter. But I'm curious, why do you think it is that you chose to have a protagonist as a woman?
So I really think it has a lot to do with listening over the last 5 years. Like, I know that might sound a little tired or corny, but my wife is an entrepreneur, and listening to her about just existing, right? And I am, I am one of 2 male English teachers in a predominantly female English department, and it's kind of been that way. It's pretty standard for the most part. So you hear this like chatter, and I'm kind of in these moments like, man, I never thought about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Constantly.
And then at the same time, I have had the pleasure of just being around a lot of really funny women. Like my friends in college, my friends I studied abroad with, just some real heavy hitters who were hilarious to be around. And I was looking at the landscape of, like, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was sticking out at me, and I was like, that just is not, she's not any female character I know. You know what I mean? In some of these instances, the women just weren't authentic to me, you know, and I just felt like I could just tell a story that presented
So
that character.
Sam reminded me of Buffy if we got to see her 10 years later after fulfilling her purpose.
Right.
There is a sense of if we got to see that much of Buffy. Like, you know, Buffy saved the world at 19.
Yeah.
But then she had to go live her life. And then how I imagine if you peak at high school, you become a fucking mess in your adult life and have to figure out what your real purpose is or your new purpose is. And I just immediately, like, we had a chance to read the book. I very, very much liked it. And I want to talk about a couple of things that I really liked. The first being the opening sequence, the way that you decided to dull out exposition, more so the way that you decided not to dull out exposition.
Okay.
Really, really worked for me because you actually just see her in action. There's too much in comics,
Yeah.
especially first issues, especially like somebody new or
First
a new
time to
comic.
in the industry.
It is so much tell and not enough show.
Yeah.
You showed her in action and gave her an internal dialogue that was enough to just immediately glom me onto her.
Mm-hmm.
And the pacing of it was great.
You want to know something? A funny fact? So the first 5 pages of that book,
Yeah.
right? That was in drafts like 1 through 3 of the book. And then it was recommended that I remove it because it was too slow. Because I think they wanted to be inserted into her personal, like readers wanted her to be like inserted into her personal life. So I removed it, and then I wrote the first script, not including those first 5 pages.
Nope.
Riccardo was like, "Hey, I think there's something is there any way we can speed this up?" And I was like, "Actually, there is."
It's the David Mamet rule. You enter a scene in progress, you leave a scene before somebody's done with their sentence, right?
Yep.
So like I had no idea why the fuck she was on a boat, what she was stalking. All I knew is that there's this person who is mildly interesting and she's just going. Why she fights it, what she's fighting, who she's fighting it for, no goddamn clue.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't matter because all I needed to know was this wreck of a human is good at one thing.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And here's the thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that like we hopefully by issue 2, it makes it very clear. She's actually also, you realize like she's not that great at it. Right? Like in the beginning of that scene, she's like her friend Joey, who we meet shortly after, and we'll find this more as we learn more about Joey, is kind of the know-it-all. He's kind of the nerd friend, and he's telling her before she goes on this journey that like it's not a werewolf. You're not fighting a werewolf.
Right.
And she's kind of like, whatever, man. Like I just have to show up and kill this thing.
Well, the thing is, so you exhibited that in the book with her searching for the wand. Why don't you bring it with you? Because then I'd lose it. She literally already lost it and spent the whole scene looking for it.
Yeah.
So even her impression of what's the right thing to do is still pretty terrible, which
Yeah.
is an incredibly endearing quality. The other thing that I really, really dug was their introduction of who I assume is the main villain. I felt that sound effect. So there's I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, like without spoiling it, they just appear and are there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I literally felt the snap of the sound effect like a rocket,
Yeah.
and it was just very effective
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
That is a very good entrance in comics. And the character design reminded me of somebody in pop culture that I hate. So I love hating this person already.
I hope you're is this person on podcasts a lot?
Too many.
Okay. Is this person a professor of some kind?
Shouldn't be.
Okay. So my artist, when he designed this character, was like, "Hey, should we get on a bunch of subreddits and just talk about how much this guy looks like?"
Can we say it? Should we say it?
I don't know.
Is it
Can we
okay?
say? Is it? I don't care.
I just don't want.
If you want to, you
he
can
looks
say.
like Jordan Peterson. Are you familiar with who Jordan
No.
Peterson is?
No.
You're lucky. Are you familiar with who Jordan Peterson is?
I know of him. Yeah.
Ricardo's going to be
much.
so happy that you said that.
A fucking amazing. First of all, I didn't know you that well yet. So when I was following on social media, when I saw the character designs, I immediately was just like, "That's Jordan Peterson." But then in context of the book, I was like, that's Jordan Peterson. Even with the jacket. I'm like, yeah, is perfect. Is absolutely perfect, and I was a fan. But
Sweet.
yeah, let him know. Yeah, I enjoyed this. So when do we get more?
Oh, that's Jordan Peterson.
You know that guy?
That guy.
Yeah.
I've seen him. Oh, he's
He's a dour looking weirdo.
Kind of scary looking. I mean, he
is.
He's a sunken angry guy. And then like the most recently he's been wearing like Two-Face Batman villain style suits. So it's like, yeah,
Where they're half and half?
you're a comic book villain.
Seriously?
Hey,
Robert Monroe just pledged.
Jr.
Oh,
Congrats,
wonderful.
he just pledged money.
Thank you. Appreciate you, man.
You'll enjoy it, Robert.
I think it's interesting that you said it was a book first. A lot of times, I think all of us have, excuse me, when we were reviewing something, that the writer had been a novelist right before that. It takes a couple of issues, if ever, for them to get in the swing of comics.
Yeah.
And even comic artists or authors who have been longtime authors and went to write novels, when they come back, it's like, it's very heavy.
Yeah.
And the book Far Sector, which we all really liked, still felt like the
N.K.
beginning
Jemisin.
of
the first two issues. She's a novelist.
Yeah.
She's a very excellent world builder. Those first two issues,
Very
were
dense.
Very dense,
very
yeah.
text heavy, very dense. It's actually
and we all
a
love
great
that series.
if you
It's
read
a
it.
great series.
Yeah, I've never read it.
Oh, it's
No,
so
it's
good.
great.
Yeah,
Great
it's
story.
really
But
good.
it took like 3 issues to like really gel because
Yeah.
she had so much world building to do, and you felt the weight of it.
But
And,
I never would have guessed that
Really?
this started out as a novel. It was a complete surprise to me. It just that's not the impression that I had with this at all. So it was really, really good. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So another artist, or not artist, another author who I was paying attention to. I haven't read any of his scripts yet, but Ben Percy on Wolverine
Yeah, I'm like 14 issues in.
has like taught me a lot just by reading the issues. He's just a beast too.
I like him a lot. What was another Ben Percy series that
He's
His
on Ghost Rider now.
his
right?
Ghost Rider with Shaw was cool, and then X Factor. No, X Force. I liked his X Force. He's still writing it. He's literally the only.
Is he the only one left of the
X-writer,
Hickman?
Like, yeah, I think he's the only Hickman person. Wait, Duggan. Him and Duggan are like the only ones OGs that are left in like the Krakoa era. But yeah, they're still cranking out.
That series is wild. Yeah, Hickman. One day I'll try and do Hick. He's just so good. I'm not in. I don't know. I can't do the graphic design though. I can't do all the symbols and the languages and.
You don't want to create a new language
Yeah,
and
that's-
then iconography for it and then timelines and
maps.
branching ones.
Do you mean one day you'll try to imitate his style, or you'll get into his writing?
I would love to be as good as him one day.
Oh,
Like
sure,
whatever
sure.
it takes.
Yeah,
At this,
All right.
whatever
But
it takes.
how hard can it be?
How hard can it be? I just got to show up.
Exactly.
That's it. You know.
I was Damon Daniels. I would say he says hi, and he accuses you of not getting ready for New York City Comic Con this coming Friday.
No, I'm going to Thursday tomorrow.
Thursday is tomorrow.
I'm going tomorrow. So that's
There you
Oh,
go.
you are?
Yeah, I'm just gonna show up
There
and
you
I'm literally showing up and flyering and just how hard can it be, man?
That's
Like,
fucking
I'm
awesome.
just gonna get in my car, take the train into
Let's
New York.
let's manifest something. Next
Yeah.
year you have a table.
Let's do it.
Or at least at the Philly Expo or something. Like next year, a table.
We can manifest that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts or questions for Carmen? I very much like this book. I want to see an issue 2. Anybody that's listening, if any of this sounded interesting, or if you just even like this guy,
How can you not
support,
like this guy?
pledge, read Proctor #1.
Oh, I do have. Can I just pitch the stretch goals real quick?
Fuck yeah.
Okay, so
Oh,
stretch
I love
goal-
these. I saw these.
Thank you. I spent a lot of time thinking about these, and so the first stretch goal is at 6K, and you'll get stickers of this, right? So everybody will get a 3x5 sticker of the Slay All Day cover B. Oh, by the way, that cover was drawn by Andrea Scalmazzi. He is an Italian artist who. Oh man, he's gonna kill me. Well, I can't remember the publisher he works with, but it's an Italian. No, it's not Mad Cave. Riccardo just his story just came out in Mad Cave.
That's
Tales
the
of the
anthology,
Cave.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So 6K will get us stickers here, but more importantly, if we get to 8K, I'm gonna give a 10% raise to to every single creative that I worked with on this project.
Nice.
Awesome.
My buddy Ryan Beatty, who handled the music in the movie trailer, he's gonna get something. Like literally everybody who touched this thing, I want to make sure they get paid out, because even like coming from the music world, I have this philosophy that everybody eats. Like
That's right.
everybody eats, everybody gets taken care of. I don't need to make $1 million. Hopefully I break even. You know, full transparency. 12 grand is what I'm in on this project right now, right? So like the 4,500 is just being dumped, or whatever we raise is being dumped right into issue 2. And I'm kicking this money back to the artists. The $10,000 stretch goal, which is what I'm super excited about. My brother started a nonprofit called the Comics Collective Inc. It is a nonprofit organization that is focusing on getting underserved youth comic books and experiences. The goal is to write a $1,000 check and do a $1,000 scholarship for a senior who plans on majoring in art or graphic design.
Nice.
Yeah, in a school district that is, you know, historically underserved. Like the nonprofit was founded because as much as I love comics, like my brother and I grew up in a house where, like, I'm not giving you $2 to go to I'm not giving you $2 to go buy a comic book every week or every month. No, we're not subscribing to comics. No, I'm not driving you up the road to go to the comic book store. It was just, no was a common phrase in my house. And the only comic books that my brother and I really had up through, you know, middle school or even high school were like hand-me-down comics, like Wolverine, you know, that sort of stuff. My cousin who grew up in Northeast Philly would visit for summers, or I would go visit him for the summer, and he would just give us these comic books that he had. By the time I got to high school, I was more concerned with beer, guitar strings, gas. Like it just was what it was, you know, like that was kind of what I was more worried about at the time. So my money went to that, driving to shows, buying equipment. And now coming on the other end of it and finally having money and looking at myself. And then as a teacher, seeing kids who really want to be a part of the conversation, but just don't have the means. I just want to make sure I can be of service to them. And actually the most tragic thing is hearing about kids who want to go to school for this stuff and they have no idea where to start. For what, you know, for understandable reasons, the guidance isn't there because life gets in the way, and I understand that. And it's like, man, if I just had $1,000, if I just had $800, if I just had $400 for supplies, like we want to at least be able to provide it to somebody.
Yeah. I think even still, I think it's gotten better in the last couple of years, but even still, comic books are not really considered a form of literature, and they truly are. Like if they were there are so many people in my life now at our age, at my age, who wish that they were allowed to culturally or even just pushed on them comic books as an option in regards to reading level, learning apprehension, all of it. And they would love books more if they were allowed to just like really express themselves with comic books as opposed to required reading lists of 200-300-year-old books that were forced on you and you had to write about them.
Yeah,
the joy of reading is lost when you don't like allow people to find their level.
Yeah, 100%. I love reading,
Yeah.
and I never read. I think I read like one assigned book.
Yeah,
from
right.
school, you know.
Story of my life.
Yeah,
You know
I was
how many
gonna say-
kids come up to me and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Costa, you know I never read that book, right?" I'm like, "You and everybody else, man." Like, it's like that's like the passing of the torch, coming of age thing is just to remind your English teacher that you didn't read whatever they had assigned to you, you know. But so I just finished my reading specialist certification over the summer, and I tell parents all the time, like, who cares what they're reading? Like, give them something to read. It's better. It's better than social media. It just is. They're not engaging in the content the right way. Find something that they like. The comic, get it. Let them read comic books. It's totally fine.
Yeah.
I read recently that I forget the numbers, but comics have on average more rare words than many other forms of literature.
And they're given visual context in order for you to understand what they are earlier and easier than anything else. And it's also never too late for comics. Like I just this past year have gotten my brother and sister into comics, and they are late 40s, and they are just now, like, every time they come and visit, they'll raid my office with my shelves and be like, what's this and what's this, and I'll just give them a full fucking omnibus of like Avengers Hickman era, and he'll come back 2 or 3 weeks later and be like, do we have the second one? I was like, yes we do. Here you go. Like, I love people discovering it at any stage in their life because comics are for everyone. It's so great.
And what like the traditional reading lane sometimes teaches kids is like all the wrong things, man. Like, I end up with kids who are 14, 15 years old in my classroom, and some of them unfortunately enter and they're thinking I don't like reading, so I'm bad at reading, and I'm going to be bad at reading forever. Yeah. And it becomes this really tragic self-fulfilling prophecy. And one of the things that we're seeing now too is, in some instances, discipline problems are just reading delays. Right? So it's like, oh, this kid is bad. Well, maybe this kid is bad because they're just reading 2 levels below grade level and they're frustrated.
Yep.
So like, how about we close that gap, and then all of a sudden we see these discipline problems go away? So if you can put a comic book in a kid's hand to give them reading confidence, like, let's do it. I don't see any reason why we should not be doing that.
That's why everyone, if you are a weekly subscriber or a pull lister, or just you read comics and you've got nothing but long boxes at home and you're not going to do anything with them, fucking donate them. Donate them to schools, donate them to libraries, donate them to friends with kids. Get rid of them and share.
Yeah.
Because it's good. Jerks.
And there's a lot of new, like, really great coming of age comics. I know people complain all the time. When you work in a comic book store, sometimes you hear people kind of complain about the new, oh my, everything's woke, or everything's just too many changes. But like, going back to the business of comic books, we need a new injection of readers. We need a new entry point.
We do.
There are a lot of really, really good teen characters that appropriately reflect teen readers. Let's get those books into the hands of those kids, and now we'll have more, like, the industry will improve that way. We can't continue to say, oh man, tell this 14-year-old or 13-year-old, like, hey, you like comics, you should read Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man run. And that's fine. It's good. It's fine. But they don't see them. That's not them.
It's pretty.
You know what I mean?
It's not written very well.
It's not written very well. And to be honest, it doesn't attract the kids nowadays. Because the beautiful thing about, the generation, and we're talking about 2 or 3 generations, below us, right, is that they do go to the comics, but they're going to the comics by way of manga and anime.
YA.
So they appreciate actually deeper, better storytelling, and that's what's really pulling them in.
Yeah.
So when you're saying they're not in the comic book stores because they're not buying the Superman, the Batmans, and Spider-Mans, that's because they're going to that little small section and they're buying a lot of these independent books, such as Proctor and all the other independent.
No,
There it
so
was.
mine was
That's
like
it.
That was
mine was
good.
like a
That was a really
sick
good one.
Wookiee.
Yeah, yours was. Yeah.
Yours had like some Cardi B. Yeah, it was
For sure.
But they're going to that independent stuff that's got like a deeper deeper meaning. It speaks to them. It speaks on their level. And it's not trying too hard to speak to them. It's speaking meeting them exactly where they are.
One of the things too that like really bother me about just, I guess, fans. Nobody hates things that you love more than fans, or complains about them more than fans do. I'm in many Facebook groups and social media groups, and there's always a question about, hey, can I just pick this up and read it? Or what do I need to prepare for this series, or blah, blah, blah. The answer should always be minimal to nothing. You should be able to jump in at all. But there are gatekeeping style fans who are like, oh, well, you have to start 5 years before that with Grant Morrison's 70-issue run in order to understand the reference that's the seed of an idea in issue 2 of this series you're talking about. So enjoy $700 worth of back issues to get.
Right.
Like, that is not the answer. We're adding so much like levels of complexity and burden onto people just enjoying something Stop it.
It's why I was happy to see Strange Academy show up.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good.
Like books like that, when they show up, it's a breath of fresh air.
How they were reprinting them too as like digest size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was super smart move.
You know, they did that years ago for Runaways.
Really?
The original,
Yes, they did.
the original.
Yep.
So it was in issues, but then the original trade paperbacks for Runaways were digest size.
Yeah.
The first time I read all of it was in digest size, and then they printed them in oversized hardcovers.
And I
they
remember
never
them
had normal trim size.
I didn't know that.
And I remember seeing kids like walking around with that.
And that's a dark book.
Yeah. But that's
But in
the type
digest
of
size,
writing,
and they liked it. Yeah.
but that's the type of writing they like, man. It's not too much for them, you know. They'll get in there. Look, you say it's dark, but you look at some of the best animation that's out there in the last 20 years. Steven Universe, Avatar: The Last Airbender. They all just get just as dark,
all very adult and themed. Yeah.
you know.
Well,
So,
complex emotions, not adult.
Yeah,
and themed.
yeah, there you
complex
go.
emotions.
Right.
Yeah, man, comics are the best. Everyone should read them.
like Proctor.
Oh, crrr.
That was the best one. Yeah.
Okay.
Proctor.
I mean, we went for 45 minutes on this comic. We could talk probably a little bit more. Guys, you got anything else going on? Do you want to talk about independent? We spent all this time talking about independent
Like
comics.
the show's almost over.
Yeah.
I mean, I brought some. If you want to talk about them, no?
Okay, they're there.
Oh yeah, they're there.
Buy 'em.
Hey, Powers is great. Hip Hop Family Tree is about to be
Hip Hop
reprinted in
Family
omnibus
Tree
by
is
Ed
the
Piskor.
Dope. Ed Piskor.
You're an Astro City boy.
Very much so.
I brought this for you.
That was probably going to be the thing that I talked about, unless Len talked about it, because I saw it there. I wasn't sure.
So
cool.
I try and over prepare, and I was just like, let me grab shit from my shelf that I think Brian will want to talk about, that I think Len will want to talk about. And then the Terry Moore was for JD. But anyway, guys, go to your comic shop. Enjoy comics. Fund projects that are worth it, like Carmen's. That's Proctor issue #1, available on Kickstarter. We'll have all the links. Yeah, man. Anything else you want to plug?
My brain is melting right now, so no, and I'm probably gonna get stabbed because of that, but I can't recall.
Who in this room will stab Hammer?
When the lights
The answer
go
next
out,
week.
Someone will be dead. Brian,
Hey.
where can the people find you when you're not here?
I'm around and about. I'm at brianleibdesign.com. I'll also be appearing November 10th, Friday, November 10th, 7:30. Phoenixville, Forge Theater, the theater where my parents met. It's unrelated to this show. Probably. It's an improv show. Who knows what's
I was
come
going to
up.
say, like,
Yeah.
if we're allowed to yell out suggestions, I'll be like, your parents' meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we asked for a noun, sir.
Meet like your parents. MEAT?
Yeah.
that
Sure,
works.
sure.
That's
Yeah.
fine. That's fine.
Yeah, parent meet.
Okay.
It's also the title of my upcoming one-man show, Parent Meet.
With butter.
Yeah.
We'll bring it full circle.
Parent meet, colon, a butter problem.
Yeah. But did I say everything about that? We're called Comedy on Demand. It's an improv comedy show, 7:30 p.m., Friday, November 10th, and I would love to see all you guys there.
How strong is the demand required for the comedy?
It's a very middle, drop of a hat kind of thing.
Oh.
You're like, comedy? And we're like,
We don't
it
even
has
have
been
to
spoken.
demand it. It's just like implied.
Yeah, we take implications. Yeah.
Rad. Len, where can the people find you?
You can find me on all the social media at the Michaud Mission, which is my podcast, Two Men, One Podcast. Every black film ever made. We stream every Tuesday night right here from Young Junk, and we're available wherever you find podcasts, as well as on YouTube.
I sleep here, so I'll be here forever. But besides that, every Wednesday morning, Fresh Floppies podcast, where we talk about all spoiler-free reviews of comic books on the shelf. Carmen, one more thing.
One last
Where do you wanna
thing,
be?
a quick pitch. Alton Simpson, creator of Vampires of New Jersey, has been very helpful and insightful. He's a great guy. He's been kickstarting books since I think like 2017, 2018. So if you guys can look him up, please give him a shout out too.
Alvin
Check him.
Simpson.
Alton.
Alton Simpson.
Dope.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right. I will catch you guys later. Thank you for joining us tonight. Email us at cultpopgo@gmail.com. We'll talk to you later.